Does the Plan Commission have any questions for the applicant? Do any of the Plan Commission members have any questions for the applicant? Need clarification or anything? Okay.
I'm good.
All right, so, now what? More discussion among us? All right. Mr. Nellen, take it away.
It's let me just talk for a moment about the process itself and how we find ourselves in this situation. Early in this, when I understood that there was something afoot with regard to development.
Your microphone, please.
Sorry. I looked at my calendar. In late July, I had a sit-down conversation with the folks from the Land Use Services Department, the zoning department, and I asked them to explain to me how the process goes when someone files for a conditional, a conditional use permit. Because I had been involved in other instances, but they were very, very modest in comparison to this project, which is quite significant in all respects. The way it was explained to me was the applicant files an application. The application it's submitted to the land use services folks. They review it. When they deem that the application is complete, they then send it out to the town with a so-called 28-day letter. Now, the 28-day letter is important because the county, as a matter of comity, sends this application to the town to give the town the opportunity of reviewing it and weighing in. The town, what Sevastopol does is it delegates immediate responsibility to this group, in turn expects them to make a recommendation to the town board, and the town board will presumably act on that recommendation and send it to the RPC. The RPC, which is a unit of the county government, makes the decision. It's a subset of the board. It's 5 people. They will give whatever importance they assign to it, and they will assign it and then decide on their own. But the question I then asked was, no one has access to this document, to the application until it's released by the zoning board. So you don't know what you've really got. You don't know the contours of the project. You don't understand how the applicant has addressed the 17 criteria, as well as the general issues of effect on health and welfare. And I said, so if a party, because anybody who's really concerned about it, and we've got obviously a room full of people who are very concerned about it, they then have to move heaven and earth in response to that application. And if they see a deficiency in the application, or they disagree with a conclusion in the application, or they, for whatever reason, what do? And can they then contact the zoning people and indicate their dissatisfaction? And the zoning department said, well, if they wish to send a letter or they wish to communicate it to us in email, we'd be more than happy to receive it, but we don't review it. We never go back to that application. That application is out. If there's any complaint, any concern, whether it's manifestly justified or manifestly unfair, it goes to the RPC. They bundle the whole thing up. So, which is the reason why, I'm taking one way to get around it because I found this fascinating, which brings me to one of my principal concerns is that if you get an application and it doesn't deal fulsomely with all of the criteria, you don't really know what it is you're responding to. You say to yourself, in this application, in numerous situations, that well, we are in the process of having a report prepared. Well, we got the report on the effect on adjacent property values just before we came into the meeting. But here, if you're concerned about, you're under a 28-day clock, and then once that 28-day clock runs, the zoning department sets it up for a hearing and it can be as quickly as 3 weeks before the RPC. So you've got an application, and this is, I think what troubles me is you've got an application in which it's clear you put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's taken 18 months of negotiations among yourselves and the owners. But when the application goes out, people who are really interested, people who believe that their interests are affected directly and in a meaningful way, or disagree with the content of the application, they have a relatively short time frame in which to mount a response, because they have to go out. If you've gotten an engineering report or you've gotten expert reports, they have to go out, these people, drum up the income, drum up the money, and retain experts so they can rebut or respond to what's in the application. So that's why getting a truly complete application without any parts missing is so vitally important for fundamental due process, because until you tell the people explicitly what it is you're going to do, and you support it through your reports and your expert reports, you're leaving the people who aren't quite sure about it in a precarious situation, almost to the point where they'll run out of time. And that's why I think that, just as a matter of fairness, I think that, and as I say, in most instances it doesn't matter, because you're dealing with a guy who wants to build a pole building, out in the country, and it's a case of going to the neighbors, and it's all it all sort of works itself out. But this is a different issue. This is a major project, and I think for that reason, I think that both for fundamental reasons of due process, as well as the application can't, at least in my eyes, the applicant can't meet his burden of demonstrating through substantial evidence that he has satisfied the criteria when he hasn't even told people why it is he's doing what he wants to do. And the only way you can do that is by, as an example, initially it was going to be help me now, the water system. It was going to be a non-community water system, and then apparently the application went out, and then people from the Bayshore Property Owners Association and the Neighborhood Action Committee, and I'll stop as quickly as I can, but I'm using this as an example. But they contacted the DNR. The DNR said, "Oh, well, we didn't understand that this was." The magnitude of the project. Thank you. We took a look at the site drawings, and we've got to go back to the applicant and explain that you're going to have to treat this as a community water system. And by the way, we've also been put on notice regarding the karst issue, and so we're going to require the applicant to hire a geologist to prepare a report. And because of that, it's going to affect the community well system too. So you've got all these pieces that are suddenly moving in tandem with one another. That's why I think that I think we ought to ask the board to recommend to the RPC that this be denied. Because you can't make good on having impaired the right of people to giving them the opportunity in a reasonable time to review the application and respond. Now, you know, and part of the problem is we're all forced into what is essentially an adversary situation. Because we don't talk to one another ahead of time, you know, and so we're really bound by the fact that we've got these fast approaching deadlines, and there are all sorts of issues regarding burden of proof and who's got the burden of persuasion, which is on the applicant, but once the applicant satisfies it, the burden of persuasion then goes to the other side. It puts us in a terrible position, and I think the only way we can do justice to the process is to, quite frankly, ask that the permit be denied. No, that's my 2 cents worth.
Hold on. Well, my 2 cents worth, or 5 cents. The conditional use permit application goes to our Resource Planning Committee based on whether that application complies with applicable requirements of the Door County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. So when we get in, I could see that as this development moves along, okay, we need another study from the DNR, or we need another study from the sanitarian or whatever. But we have to remember that on one hand, they may comply with all applicable requirements of our county zoning ordinance. On the other hand, they need to comply with all state, federal, and any other local requirements. So, and to equate, if this pole building is going up next to my house, it's just as important to me as if it's going as to a development that's going to affect 20 houses. It's, you know, it's my investment. So whether it's a pole building, a storage unit, or a big development, it's important to the property owner and the resident that lives there.
Well, I agree with you. The problem is that when you have a proposal that is this complex, has this many moving parts, and the ordinance does say, that you gotta make provision for proper surface water drainage. You've got to determine whether I'm just picking a couple, whether the proposed project adversely impacts neighborhood traffic flow. You've got to address the issue regarding stormwater. I mean, those are complicated issues, you know, and I haven't even, I mean, I'm talking about my initial reaction is that it's really a legal reaction to the fact that the fundamental fairness won't occur if we go forward. You gotta put the possible challengers in a position of fairness so they can respond, whether I agree with them or not. That doesn't even get to the whole issue of whether or not the applicant has met its substantive burden of proving up its situation. But you know, how else do we fix the problem?
Well, I do depend on the expertise of our Land Use Services Department.
But,
I mean,
you know,
are they experts?
well, you know, it's a little unfair to them because for instance, let's talk about stormwater, or whether this is a community or non-community. Well, I don't think the folks at the Land Use Services Department are in a position to opine on very, very technical issues, especially when people are talking about getting geologists. And we would never have gotten to that point except for the fact that we had a bunch of concerned citizens who, upon initial review of the application, said to themselves, hey, wait a second, there are issues here that are just, we're not sure they're right, so they went to the DNR. I think the way the process works is it's really, it's really the burden placed on the interveners to bring honesty to the conversation, because the government agencies, in fairness to them, don't have the institutional knowledge to opine on all these issues. And I just think to assume they are going to is really unfair to them.
Well, they are opining on literally the letter and the words in the Door County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. That is their job, to enforce that ordinance. And like I said, as other departments come into play here, be it the DNR or DAPCAP or whoever, yeah, they need to comply with that too.
Well, they do, but as I understand it, the reason this issue, for instance, with regard to the community, I think I may be wrong in this, but I think the community water issue, system issue, that I think the Land Use Services Department said, after they had issued the permit, pardon me, after they had put the permit out on public notice, I think scratched their head and said, oh, maybe, you know, I'm putting words in their mouth, but I think this is what happened. Simultaneously with the folks from the neighborhood action group contacting the DNR, I think there was almost simultaneously a call from the Door County Land Use Services Department. And I think that, you know, but you know, if there hadn't been someone who was especially concerned about it, and no private citizen had involved themselves, had intervened, nothing would have occurred. I mean, the issue, it's quite possible the permit would have been issued, despite the fact that there are fundamental problems regarding environmental issues. I mean, I think that, I give the county a lot of credit for demanding that these 17 criteria have to be addressed. Because it's the one government agency that's bringing all of these disparate concerns together and forcing people's attention on them. And for that, I think that's a good deal.
And at the same time, Linda, you don't want to have the subject matter experts on both sides basically do that in court.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, only the lawyers will get rich, and that's not a good thing.
I understand. Okay.
Counsel knows.
Yes.
President,
I have no sensitivity. I'm a lawyer.
What-
from a procedural, can I address one or two quick things, or no?
I have no objection.
Sure.
Okay, just real quick, the well thing, I want to put this out there, we had put together, we'll call it the more complicated plan and the lesser complicated.
Okay.
Okay.
So again, two well sort of criterion, the more complicated plan, the lesser complicated plan. Originally, we submitted the more complicated plan. The DNR told us, no, you don't need that, submit the lesser complicated one, so we submitted that. Then the DNR, after speaking with people, said, no, you need the more complicated one, so we in turn have now resubmitted that. That takes care of, I mean, that's that issue. Okay.
At the end of the day, whether the well is classified as a high-capacity private well or a high-capacity other than municipal public well, the construction of the well is exactly the same. So if the concern is that we're going to have a subpar well, it is exactly the same well. It's just a different permit, which then the DNR can ask for more monitoring of the quality of the water. So if the concern is, hey, the well's going to be built lousy and there's going to be contamination, that's not a concern. You know, again, that's the reason why we go through DNR permitting on all this. That typically the condition is, we've seen your project, make sure you get all your DNR permits for this, and this, and get a county permit for this. You know, that's kind of the protection of a board like this is, you don't need to review technical engineering documents that you're not used to reviewing. You simply put a condition on that we meet all applicable rules and regulations.
The problem is, that, I mean, this is a volunteer board. The 5 members of the RPC are, you know, they are county supervisors. If it should go to the Board of Adjustment for a de novo hearing, they're private citizens. There's no way the several of us have the knowledge or technical expertise. The only way these issues surface in all, and I'm talking about what I think is the real life, is that you have private citizens who are given proper notice of the pendency of a major development, and they take it upon themselves to invest the time and energy to make sure that the issues are being properly vetted by the several government agencies that have to come into play. I think that's the way it works in real life, and we should recognize it, which is why it's so vitally necessary for this to work, is to see that the people who are concerned about it have enough time to be able to make the inquiry, hire the experts, and do what's necessary to face off against applicants like yourself who are sophisticated and well-heeled and have the commitment of time and energy. So that's the only way it works.
I understand completely, and I guess that's kind of how it always comes back to what conditions will you put on this project? If the condition is revise the traffic study, great. And to the satisfaction of pick a person, John Kalogi at the Highway Department, or you as the Plan Commission or as the Plan Commission Board, we can do that. Or county staff, if you want to require that, you know, to take that a step further, even on the stormwater perspective. Greg Colthurst at the Soil and Water Department, Conservation Department, he will not issue any kind of an approval until we get through the RPC. Because he doesn't want a permit out there that, hey, I've got a permit, and then the project goes away. So there's certain steps that you can't have everything in hand ahead of time. That's why you place conditions on an approval.
The RPC does that, that's the normal sequence.
But here we've got a real-life example where, I mean, I obviously indicated my, my views of the traffic study. I don't think it measures up, and I think it's on its face, it's flawed. But if you take another 2 weeks to come up with your traffic study, you're 2 weeks closer to a deadline beyond which you can't go, because at some point in time, this is going to be before the RPC, and they're going to make a decision based on what's in front of them. And you have to build in, which you do, you have to build in enough time for people who are challenging what's said in the application. You got to give them enough time to mount an effective challenge so the issues are joined. I think as a practical experience, as a practical matter, the applicant is in the driver's seat. The applicant files his permit. It appears that unless there's something grossly wrong on the face, my sense is a very mechanical process. Someone from the someone from the Land Use Services Department goes through and says, okay, there's a response to item 1 and a response to 2, 3, 4. All 17 criteria have been responded to. At least they have been addressed. And it's bang, boom, send it out for notice. That means that if you don't give the public, and the whole idea of this is to give the public adequate notice so they can get actively involved, all the applicant has to do is play a waiting game. Because once he's within a week or 2 weeks of getting to the RPC, he's won. Because no one from the RPC, I'm talking about practically, no one from the RPC is going to challenge a permit that no one else is challenging. I just don't think that works. So it's incumbent that we recognize how important these timelines are, and that we give the citizens, the public, the opportunity to weigh in. And right now, the clock starts by filing a completed application, and then you get 28 days, and then it's set for hearing, which is in 3 weeks. And if you have to start from scratch, I mean, you guys have been doing this for 18 months.
Right. Well, devil's advocate here. If we submit a completed application and we assume that the guy at Robert E. Lee knows what the heck he's doing as far as a traffic study, is it our responsibility to say, let's get 2 traffic studies done and then have a 3rd traffic consult? At some point, if you hire a professional engineer to tell you about the traffic, we honored it. That's not our fault. We feel it's a complete application. We've got a traffic study done by an outside consultant that isn't involved in the project, that isn't have a care one way or the other.
You're dependent upon.
So I guess that's one point. The other point is, you say the opposition hasn't had a chance to review this. They certainly have. I got a letter in the mail at my mailbox last week saying they've spent $80,000 to fight this already. You don't think they've done their due diligence? We've heard everything they have.
I think that how can they have done their due diligence?
How did they spend $80,000? They've spent more than I have doing the entire project.
That doesn't matter.
So they've had their kick at the can, is what I'm getting at. It's not like
Okay.
they don't know anything about the project. They've been harassing DNR and county staff for 6 months.
Okay, everybody, please take a look at the conditional use permit criteria. Once the application is deemed complete, a copy of the application and packet and staff report will be sent to the town for recommendation and comments. I don't think we would have received the application packet if the county had deemed it incomplete. So,
Can I-
that being said,
Can I
I was
offer-
assured there has been no changes. Since our receiving this application, there have been no changes to what's been submitted to the county. And I'm just gonna repeat again, county criteria is a little bit different than what's required for the well or the holding tank or whatever. That's all state regulated. So I think that the county is only going to address the zoning issues. And the reasons, we're gonna make a recommendation here, and what are our reasons? And is that proposal consistent with our comprehensive plan? And what concerns or conditions do you wanna place on this or ask the RPC to think about in the event it is granted?
It's through this process that we find out that the application, in fact, isn't complete. It's not accurate. It has deficiencies. I'm not going to attribute base motives, okay? I'm just saying the application on its face does not survive scrutiny. You got to accept that as a reality. And, the challengers have only one opportunity to raise their concerns, but they can only do that once they have an application in front of them that does address meaningfully all the results. But right now, at least the application, there were several instances in which they said, study to come. We'll retain these people. We'll get something. You can't respond to that because you don't know what it is, what the study says. And until you have the study, you can't make a decided, I defined anyway. I gave my 2 cents worth of the traffic study, and I'm not a traffic engineer. But it's a bogus study on its face. And my impression is you guys believe the same thing. And you're probably going to call your engineer tomorrow and have a conversation. But that's just one of 17 items that have to be addressed. And my view is that, I don't see why we should make it easy for anybody in this process. And we're not making it easy for ourselves by doing this. But I think we owe it to our citizens and to the public that we commit ourselves to a process that at the end of the day will produce a fair and just result. And at the end of the day, someone is going to be happy and someone's going to be unhappy. I can't help that.
Yep. Well, I don't want to get into I beg to differ on the traffic study. We've used Robert E. Lee as a consultant and an expert. So I do beg to differ on that. So, but we're all entitled to our opinion.
Well, they can always have a bad day.
Yep.
Just for sitting here as an interested third party, there are so many items that came up. There's so many items that came up in tonight's discussion that you should focus on some of those other items as well, rather than just arguing
Traffic study.
one single point. And that would be my only comment.
I think we need to look at the, go down that list there and address those 17 items. Do something, anybody disagree, or, I mean, what is our plan of attack here? What are we gonna do?
Well, I think
Are we gonna
there's-
go down
there's-
each of these items and say
There's
A or B?
many of these items that we've heard from each side, and certainly, I don't think the burden of proof has been satisfied that it's okay.
That they've met?
Right, correct. Start with the first one, if you want. I mean, you got one side says it will, one side says it won't. I don't feel that it's been proven that property values won't be affected.
That's right.
I don't think that's been proven. Similar uses, that's questionable, whether it is or isn't.
Well, it depends how far you're gonna go. I mean, there are multiple, there's MODs down the road. I mean, if, not similar to immediate area.
Oh, I
certain.
think we gotta discuss what we're talking about 115 RV homes that need to have cottages for some particular reason. And they need to put it in the bowl of the quarry. That, similar use, that, I don't think that holds water, Linda, I really
Residential.
don't.
No, it's not similar to other residential in the area.
Correct.
We can go through, and get a sense.
Yeah.
I don't believe based on the information contained in the application, and given the other information received from the challengers, I don't believe they've met their burden on one. So I think that they haven't met their burden. They haven't met their burden to demonstrate that this is a use similar to others. Skipping over 3, but not ignoring the fact that maybe perhaps this is in compliance with the Door County Comprehensive Plan. It's certainly not in compliance and violates the very essence of the town's comprehensive plan.
Correct. I agree.
I believe it is, I believe that they're supposed to give us a provision of an approved sanitary waste disposal system. That issue it could be weeks from now until that's decided. So I don't believe, they can't tell us what it will look like, so consequently, they haven't borne their burden. It's simple. It follows as night to day. I don't think that they're still in discussions regarding the potable water supply. They haven't met that burden.
I think on that, 4, 5, and 6, there's questions, but that's also something that I don't feel I can decide. I mean, you need engineers to decide whether that's accurate or not, and that's beyond my scope.
Well, that's right. That's why I think at the end of the day, because these are such technical issues, you gotta have engineers talking to engineers. But if you ask us, since we have to make a decision, the decision is that whatever had been proposed in the document, in the application, has been moving. And you're following this ball all over the place. Well, that's not our job. Our job is to review an application that explicitly addresses with finality the issue that particular criteria.
I think I'm gonna do whatever the gentleman, I don't know which one it was, that said, and take a step back here. I do not, hearing both sides, whatever technological, there was, and the other studies on the other side and whatnot, I do not believe that this project fits into the neighborhood, into the characteristic. At this location, too much density in a small area. You are in a bowl, like an amphitheater. The noise will, in my opinion, come out. The road traffic, the big rigs, the double sanitary problems, etc. I know it's an adjustment. I just do not believe that this is the location for this. I don't know. I've been around a long time, and sometimes,
Come on.
but sometimes, I've been around a long time. Sometimes I have learned that if I have a right to do something, it's not necessarily the right thing to do. Some may vote for approval, I cannot. It will not be me, I'm sorry.
So would you
Let me-
like to make that motion?
What part of it?
Or
Well,
discussion?
that's, if the motion is among the reasons why the permit should be denied is because it does not meet with, I think, the town comprehensive plan, that's fine, I happen to agree with that, but that fails to address all the issue. Let me just back up to, the reason I feel so strongly about this, Linda, is because I spent 20 years of my life dealing with regulatory agencies at Fort Howard. And we knew that if we wanted a permit extension, a permit modification, whatever it is, we had to deal with EPA, DNR, Fish and Wildlife Service, you go on, the whole litany. And we knew it was incumbent upon us that when we filed the application and it would go out on public notice, that application had to be absolutely tight as a drum. Every issue had to be addressed. Because we knew everyone and their brother was going to pick at that. And we said to ourselves, we're not going to do that. We're going to have something that we can be proud of, that's buttressed by the best scientific modeling and the best scientific expertise we've got. And sometimes we'd have to go out and buy it. That's the environment I come from, and that's the one that's most guaranteed to end up in a good result for everyone, both the applicant as well as the public at large.
Well, wouldn't that come into the form we fill out with the reasoning?
Right.
All I'm saying is, I could make a straight motion, or anybody could, to approve or deny, or recommend approval or denial. I believe, am I correct?
Yep,
And
you
then
can make a motion and we will
If you,
vote on it.
so your
and then we
viewpoint,
will
I guess what I'm
address-
saying,
Yep,
Jim, is that your viewpoint would go on the form,
reasons,
the
the
reasoning.
reasons for our decision.
So it wouldn't be dismissed by a motion or
Yep.
discharged. I don't know, what do
I
you
have a
think?
motion, okay?
Oh, well, all right, be my guest, I'm not proud.
Well, let's see where this goes.
Well, all right.
I said,
Let's hear
the
it.
Sevastopol Plan Commission requests the town board to recommend the Door County Resource Planning Committee deny the application by Quarry Bluff LLC for a conditional use permit. The permit application is not complete and contains several material deficiencies that make it impossible for interested parties to fully assess the impact of the proposed development. As a result of the errors contained in the application, the failure to provide substantial information in a timely manner, the applicant has failed to demonstrate it has satisfied the requirements and conditions required by the comprehensive zoning ordinance. And then I say in particular, key information supporting its contention, there will be no adverse impact on area of property values. Were not contained in the application. The report came this morning, but not in time for us to review it. So I don't know whether the report holds water. The remainder of the applicant's responses consist entirely of speculation, blah, blah, blah. But just limiting it to the first 8 or 9 sentences, is there a general sense among this group that that is an accurate reflection of what we're facing?
I'll respond first. All we need to do is the Planning Commission of the Town of Sevastopol at a legally noticed and posted meeting on this day and date recommends either support or denial of this conditional use permit application. It's a yes or a no, support or denial. And then we can go into our reasons for that town's decision. My preference would be to just keep the motion, either support or denial, and then we address the reasons for our decision.
I agree.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. So if you want to make a motion to either support or deny,
I make a motion that the Sevastopol Planning Commission recommend to the town board that how was your language? I like your language better than mine, quite frankly.
the planning, recommend
How about this?
denial, recommend to the town, Sevastopol Town Board, denial of the conditional use permit application.
Fine.
We need a second.
Second.
Who made the motion? Did Linda make the motion? or
Mr.
did-
Nellen
I
made
made
the
the
motion,
motion.
Okay.
and Ms. Ramstack seconded. Any further discussion? Gentlemen, anything
I guess
else?
I'm still puzzled as to the effect of the draft staff report. That I have great difficulty if we've got something and if there's deficiencies in their procedures, but they conclude that you could do this and have some conditions and so forth. I have a real problem with where does that leave us? I mean, I understand Jim's concerns, but I mean, this is part and parcel of what we look at.
And going back to our attorney's definition of substantial evidence, do we have substantial? Credible, relevant, probative, substantial, more than just a emotion. So,
Listen to him.
Well, I think that the motion itself, I think, is one that we can all agree to, and then we can supplement it as we go forward.
I'll call the question.
Do we
okay.
need to vote?
The motion is to recommend denial to the town board of the conditional use permit application before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So
Do you want a roll
unanimous?
call? Do you want a roll call?
Unanimous?
Yeah.
No, let's. And what the next step is to go through each of these 17 items, right? To basically.
Well, put on
We
our-
could, but now we're going to look at, so that was a unanimous vote of denial, recommend denial to the town board. So now, we will look at our recommendation form.
Yep.
And if you want to refer back to that 17-point criteria, that's up to you. The 17-point criteria is on page 2 of the conditional use permit definition.
Sorry, I'm going looking through my papers here. I'm gonna find something.
I think I have it.
There's that. Oh, shoot. Oh, I know where it is.
I don't know.
Of course,
which
it's
one
filed
that
where it
is.
should be filed.
I'm just going through
Really
the,
difficult.
I know. All right, are we ready to look at that recommendation form?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Reasons for the town's decision. Now, we're probably going to have differ on opinion on here. But I guess that's That's okay, we can differ. We can say some members of the plan commission,
Okay.
okay? Who wants to go first?
Is that
Reasons.
number one?
Yes. Reasons for the town's decision.
Reasons
Well,
for
I
the
think,
council.
I think actually the first three you can say are questionable.
Okay, we don't
Please be
have,
quiet.
yes, please.
It's,
Yeah, we do not have to address each and every one of these issues. We can, we can summarize. So,
Well,
I would recommend we go through the 17, because there's things here
Yeah.
on some of these 17 that would go through,
well, they're gonna go through it, so we might as well,
and at least provide some guidance where we know that
Right.
there's areas where we need to do a deeper dive versus those that, for example, emergency services. Right?
okay.
That's, to me,
everybody's okay
that's
with
there,
that?
there's no
Start
issues
at
with
the one,
emergency
start at the top.
services as an example,
Start at the top.
right? So I think if we started at the top,
Yep.
the first one is whether the project will adversely affect property values, and I think it's, the burden is known. I think it's relative to having the information relative to the studies on the property assessments. I think that's one of the areas that we have to get that information disseminated so that that study can be scrutinized. Again, we haven't had access to that as Mr. Nellen has stated. So that's, to me, one of the biggest areas. I think the other one is relative to the property value pieces, this whole notion of, how does someone measure community character? And actually was brought up by both the developers and the residents. And the question is, where are there gaps relative to community character in that? And I think the other big one that's part of the adversely affect property values is the size of lot used in the comparison. The lot size, for example, for an apples to apples, you should compare it excluding things like the common areas versus the properties that are adjacent that are just the properties themselves. Because that property size designation, flows through a lot of other aspects relative to how you assess the value.
To sum all that up, we're still on the first item?
Yep.
Can we just say inconsistency on property valuations that were put before us, or inconsistency on property
Studies.
valuation studies or reports or whatever
The study.
accessible
Study.
to us? Okay, inconsistencies on property valuation studies or study. As far as I know, we were only provided with one study, and that was part of the applicant's.
well, there was that one by the gentleman Bill Gassett, and there was one on that Atlanta business.
The problem with it is that the studies were, one was an academic study that had no
Correct.
relevance to what we got in front of us, and the other one was out of a newspaper.
I agree, but she said
Well,
there
they
were
were
no
in the-
studies, and
Yeah.
I'm taking
They
out
were
those two studies.
In the packet.
Yes, they were in the pack, in the cup, yes.
Okay, so inconsistencies. All right, number 2.
The applicant
Let's see what
has
number
not,
2.
has not established that the proposed use is similar to other uses in the area.
Well, do they need to establish that? I mean, we can see it, can't we?
Well, here it says that, the applicant, if it can't, there's an affirmative obligation on the applicant to meet to satisfy these criteria. It's right here in the county zoning ordinance. It says, it uses the typically legalese, it says an applicant's failure to demonstrate by substantial evidence that the application of all applicable requirements shall be grounds to deny the conditional use permit. Said in normal English is, they didn't carry the burden, so they did not establish that this use is similar to others in the area. I mean, that's,
And that's one where I think
yeah,
they have.
I don't think they.
Because-
Sure, when I think of,
Bayshore Inn.
Bayshore Inn, Westwood Shores, and
The landmark.
If you look at
yeah.
the Door County tourism, where they list all the properties where people are basically having residential homes with 3 or 4 bedrooms that are renting them out, you know, right, this is providing, lodging for tourists that are either here short-term, medium-term, or long-term.
But you can't
And
lose-
you're doing that along in that area, there's evidence of that.
On the rental aspect, yeah, but you're talking about houses on lots that are, I don't know, 2.5, 3 acres and whatnot, as composed to putting a bunch of people in a small spot. So I mean, it's spread out, that's what my
Yeah, but
argument is. I
to me, the
don't-
context is providing a lodging option. And how they provide that lodging option, whether it is a condominium, whether it's a hotel, or whether, you know, you're monetizing the asset you have in your home by allowing, you know, somebody else to do that.
Oh.
To me, that's a similar use, isn't it, Jim? From a lodging?
I
Temporary
think
lodging?
on that factor and factor only, but when you look at the concentration and you look at it, you know, it's hard to keep an aesthetic, to not make an aesthetic evaluation, and I thought it was very interesting to talk about this, you referred to it before,
Community character?
yes, I thought that was really fascinating, because I don't think that is in keeping with the community character. But if, you know, rather than beating a dead horse, if it
Yeah.
appears as though it's 3-3, we'll just move on to the next item, if that makes sense.
That's fine.
Just not address it at all.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
well,
It's not consistent with the
well, we
Sevastopol.
could, something along the lines that the
Let me
majority,
get that in there.
the majority of parcels are single-family
We could do
in
that.
the neighborhood. Although the property is zoned recreational, commercial,
Right.
Yeah, but,
it's, the majority is single-family
But if
in
you-
the immediate neighborhood.
Well, I think that's, when you define area, you know, how far do you allow that? Right.
my recollection is and I could be wrong on this, is that the narrative explanation or description of RC is that I think there's a last sentence that says lots will be 20,000 square feet. So, you know, it just, you know, I think that is, I don't think it is similar to other uses in the area, but, you know, it's, I mean, we could say it's that the primary other uses in the area are single-family residences.
I think we moved on from number 2, though.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
All
I
right.
think we were
Sounds
on
good to
the.
me. Okay.
I'm lost.
So we won't,
Sorry.
okay, so this is all going under reasons for the town decision, so
Right.
let's try to keep it short and
Alright.
concise, because
I know.
RPC and the town board is gonna be looking at this, and they don't wanna see 3-page addenda.
Less is more?
Right, less is more. Okay, so if we're not gonna address number 2, fine and dandy. Number 3, proposed project is consistent with the Door County Comprehensive and Farmland Preservation Plan, or any officially adopted plan, town plan.
And that's,
Our adopted town plan indicates park/recreational.
Yes, so it is not consistent with the Sevastopol Comprehensive Plan.
maybe we just say it's not, the proposed
Well,
projects are not consistent with the town plan.
Well,
Yeah,
depends
but
on
you're
your
talking park
interpretation of
rec.
recreation. What's your interpretation of recreation?
Well, maybe the campground part, but not the other part.
Right.
I don't know. It's,
You know, you don't get the campground unless you get the 115 single-family dwellings.
So, I don't know.
Or that, or you could say the MOD was not the intent of the town's comprehensive plan, you know. A multiple occupancy development was not.
Well, we heard an expert witness that said it doesn't qualify as an MOD.
Oh, it does. I clarified that with zoning, because I was asking, is there a difference between an MOD and a condominium unit? Condominium unit is or a condominium development is an MOD, so.
So our lawyer was not telling us the truth? The witness?
I'd be happy to address that again.
Yeah, I got it straight from Mr. Cuso. I'm not gonna argue.
Yeah.
Do you want him to address it? Do you want to hear what he has to say?
No, I think let's,
We do
let's just-
have
let's
the
highlight as-
information.
yeah, I think it's highlighted as a concern whether or not it meets the zoning plan. And to get that.
Yeah,
get that
it's,
review.
it does not, it's not consistent with ours, the MOD
That's
part.
fine,
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
Whatever,
that's fine.
The MOD is not consistent with our comprehensive.
correct.
Yes. Okay,
That's the way to word it.
sounds good.
I mean, it's just, we got a plan, I don't care if the county's got a plan.
I think we got the language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, provision of an approved sanitary and a potable water supply and solid waste. Those are all issues that are beyond our control. I would,
Well, I'm gonna, I guess I'm like a dog with a bone. I don't think that ultimately they're gonna have, the applicant and the DNR are going to have to strike an agreement regarding the potable water supply and the stormwater issues and sanitary sewer. At this point in time, and I go back to my prior comment, if there is no agreement, there is no they can't provide a sanitary waste system, disposal system, because it's still in negotiations. So they, by definition, haven't met their burden. Let's say that, I mean, that's just the logical extension. Does that make sense? I mean, how can we possibly say not address an issue where where the applicants are still in negotiations, substantive negotiations with the DNR regarding this matter?
Well,
So the question is have they met their burden by providing us a finalized sanitary waste disposal system? The answer can only be no.
I disagree.
Well, what's?
Can we just say that, okay, so unsure of compliance with all state, county, and local regulations when it comes to sanitary water and waste?
Well, they haven't.
That you're
They aren't in
unsure?
compliance.
I would say sanitary and water, I think solid waste is pretty straightforward relative to
Oh, right.
garbage
Solid
disposal, that
waste
sort
is
of thing.
definitely
So
not.
I
think
do,
it's-
I agree with
I think it's sanitary and water.
Yes.
So how do you want to state it?
I would say that they
Fail to meet their burden of proof
Yeah.
on water and
stormwater
sanitary,
discharge and
Potable.
and potable
water
water.
supply
Sanitary
and
waste and
sanitary
potable.
waste. You got this, Amy?
Sure.
You are still here, I hope.
I'm here.
6, we're skipping, whether the proposed use creates noise, odor, or dust.
Well, they agreed that it did, but they had, we're talking about mitigation.
Any project under construction is gonna create noise
Yeah.
and odor and dust, whether it's an individual, single-family home or a project. Thoughts?
No, I'm okay with that.
Well, during this, you mean during
During
construction? Because I am concerned with the shape of the area being like a bowl in an amphitheater and just heading out. I am, but, you know, that's a minor in the scheme of everything else. But it's, you know, I don't know. I
I-
can live without it,
yeah.
don't worry about it. Pick my battles.
Yeah, I think with nose odor and dust, we've got enough people that are gonna be watching them if they're
Yep.
doing this, that are gonna be screaming, and they know that.
In that case, I would just ignore it.
Yeah, forget I said it.
I'd say.
Yeah,
Move along. Okay, well, here we go.
8,
I think the primary issue there is understanding the pedestrian impacts.
Yeah,
Um,
and the fact, I am concerned with the one-way in. It's still, even though the emergency road comes in, it merges with the main one. So I see there still as being only one ingress egress,
Yeah, but
but,
I agree on their point, it's as wide as, Bay Shore Road.
yeah, but you got a meeting. What if everybody's,
Well, they're gonna meet 20 feet out in this road too.
Well, you'd have the same thing
You know,
in the
if-
cul-de-sac.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's only
Yeah.
one way in and one way
yeah,
out
that's true.
in a
And the fire
cul-de-sac.
chief
All
said
right.
also, right?
Yeah, so concern with pedestrian.
With pedestrian access. At least I got my
do we want to say something like
viewpoint in the minutes.
that the,
Or bike or anything.
that the county board, that the town board urges that further study of pedestrian access be undertaken?
That's good.
Yes.
I like that wording.
And revisiting the bike path, right? If the bike path says that you're supposed to go a different way, but everyone ignores it, kind of like they're supposed to, they say they're using the sidewalk, but they're cutting across the lawn. You know, it's the same sort of thing. And just revisit that, if that in a practical matter, they're just gonna use B.
When they
then reflect that.
resurfaced County B, I went to the town, or the county meetings, because I wanted to be sure what we were talking about. And Bay Shore Drive has paved shoulders. They are not designated bicycle lanes.
Correct.
Granted, there's a sign that says bike route and so on, but technically that is not, and I just, it got confusing for a lot of people, but it is not like up in, is it Egg Harbor going out on G or something, they got the painted bicycle, I mean, it's a designated
The
bicycle
share arrows
lane.
and all that, right.
But Bay Shore Drive is not. It's solely a paved shoulder that's used by bikers and walkers and everybody else, but just for
Yep,
clarification purposes.
okay.
I think if we just keep it concise to further study
Yeah.
of pedestrian/bike traffic, not access, but pedestrian/bike traffic in the area. Not
That
just
covers
at
number
that,
9 also.
not
then?
just at
No,
the access.
number 9 is specific, looking at traffic flow, especially during peak season.
Yeah.
You know, as a county highway, okay, this is the one that's a little bit sensitive for me.
2 more cars.
I grew up on County C, rode the bike on County C, County S, and I did a couple things to this analysis that I'll share. Is I asked the sheriff's department for accidents on all the county roads. So I've got accident data from the last 5 years. And then I looked at specifically the town of Sevastopol. So when you look at the traffic studies that they also cited for B, they also have on portions of T, you know, and T meanders from, you know, Glidden Drive all the way up to Fish Creek, or excuse me, to Egg Harbor. And at half the traffic, T had more accidents recorded by the sheriff's department than Bay Shore Drive, when you look at accident reports, just in the town of Sevastopol. So there are things that, you know, we have to recognize, or, you know, it's a county highway. It's in our comprehensive plan that it's a county highway. You know, it's a county highway that has residences on it. It's not a residential street. okay? And so we have to look at it from that context.
So
But
what
I
are you
think
trying
we-
to say then?
But, well,
I mean, regarding this,
but the traffic study that they presented,
I understand, but looking at the context of it as it's a county highway and looking at it from the county highway lens, not as, hey, this is too much for a residential street. And it's like, it may be, but it's not a residential street. It is a county highway.
no, they treat it as a rural highway.
Yeah.
But I think that, remember, the burden is on, I mean, this is a big deal.
Yes,
And
I get it. But at the county highway, the state says you can have 15,000 vehicles on a county-designed highway.
we don't know that to be the case. We know that that is contained, that sentence is in a report, but we don't know if it's true, and we don't know, and there are so many other issues regarding.
Right, my point is that a county highway is designed for a certain capacity, right? And they're just saying if it has this capacity, if it's designed for this capacity, then let's measure it, especially in peak season, right? Not an average, and then analyze it that way.
I think that the immediate question in front of us is, the only thing that's been presented to us is this traffic report. And the traffic report is flawed, for the reasons I mentioned, and no one's defending it. So I think that in this regard, we have to say that they have not carried their burden to demonstrate that, that there will not be an impact on neighborhood traffic flow and congestion. I think that's, we need to say that.
Okay, we do have the opportunity to list conditions, at the end here. I'm with Mr. Zettel on this. It is a county highway. It's constructed to hold the higher volume of traffic. Adding 100 homes, 75 homes is not going to make any difference in the middle of tourist season. There's going to be just as much traffic going in and out of there, just as many pedestrians, just as many bikers when everybody is up in Door County. So
well, is the
I don't
size of the
think the
vehicle,
project is
is
affecting
the
that.
size and type of the vehicle? I had trouble a little bit with the traffic studies because everything was car-oriented. We're talking about 45-foot, possibly 60-foot long, wider, and I don't know what impact that might play on figures.
Yes, and I think
But once
from
in
a,
and once out. I mean,
Well,
I can't
no, I
imagine.
think
Yeah,
from
but
a-
you're traveling
Driving.
over the
Mary
road.
Ellen, my practical matter is in all the feedback, no one's complained about the traffic at Penny Park. And the park opens an hour before sunrise. And you're talking about 23-foot pickup trucks with a 26-foot bass boat and a 6-foot tongue. So you're talking something that's at least 50 feet. And they have to go to that site and they have to leave at the end of every day. So when you're talking about size of vehicles for the last, how long has it been there? Since 2008, 2009? That it's been updated? You've had that amount of traffic on Bayshore Drive and all the other egress points along there that has, I mean, those aren't Tonka trucks. I mean, those are sizable rigs, and they're there every day on weekends, and that's a lot of volume.
I don't deny that, but I also would say that in order for the plaintiff, in order for the applicants to prevail, the burden is on them. And the only way they can carry that burden is, I mean, we're talking about, we're basing our decision on anecdotal evidence. That's not what this is intended to do. This is intended to substitute solid information, a solid report in lieu of anecdotal evidence. And the only way you can do that is by producing a qualified traffic study, and they haven't done it. Now, maybe between now and whenever it is, they can produce one, and if so, maybe the RPC is willing to look at it. But it's incumbent upon them not for us. I mean, that's why the whole document talks in terms of burdens of proof shifting in one way or the other. It's a legal concept.
So what do you want us to write for number 9?
I'd say that the applicant has not carried its burden to demonstrate what the impact is on neighborhood traffic flow and congestion. He just hasn't. It's a nullity.
Well, I still disagree. And to cover that, so when, our dear clerk there, when it gets to the point where it says reasons for the town's decision or the plan commission's decision, plan commission members brought forth the following reasoning. We don't all have to be on the same page, and the town board can pick and choose or deal with.
Yeah, because we don't
Okay?
vote on this, that's
We're
why
not
I'm
gonna
just.
vote on this. So,
We already
okay, let's
voted,
move
it's
along.
just- Our viewpoints are getting in here now.
All right. So,
Okay.
what,
10?
feeling that study
Or
was
what?
traffic study was incomplete or insufficient, or
Is what?
is that's your,
What to write
that's
for
your
number 9, yeah.
opinion?
Yes,
Okay. That the traffic study is insufficient?
yes. I mean,
All right, let's
Okay.
go. Adequacy of emergency services and ability to service the site. I personally
I
see
think
no
that's
problem
okay.
with that.
I don't either.
Provision of
I'm still
proper
gonna point
surface water drainage.
That gets into the whole issue of karst.
Yeah, I got a question, I mean, okay, you know, it's hard for me to or to
The-
make a comment on it, is what I'm saying.
To me,
I can't
the
make it
plan as
concise.
submitted covers that, but you may differ. So if somebody wants to put a blurb in there,
Well, I can tell you that based on an email that apparently went last Thursday, it said that the department has now requested a professional geologist to delineate karst features in the quarry. In addition, the department has also received an application for a community well for the development, which may also change the stormwater plan. I think the point is the stormwater plan hasn't been nailed down. I'm sorry, it hasn't. That's a big deal.
okay?
We have spent 50 years in this county trying to get our arms around things like domestic sewer systems. And we know that we got a problem with, because we've got such little soil in the county, both here as well as in Kewaunee County. That is a big, big deal.
Okay, so if we can just say, how about concerns with stormwater management?
Well, just say they haven't,
Complete?
I would say they haven't met their burden, period. If they can,
I disagree.
but if they can, the only way you do that is you gotta have evidence, you gotta have a substantive document. In the absence of that document, you haven't met your burden. I mean, legally, that is, one leads into the other.
So failure, what do you want to say?
I would say that the applicant has failed to make provision for proper surface water drainage, period.
Well,
They haven't. They don't, they're still in negotiations with their DNR.
I've read the staff report several times, but, all right. Staff report says it's okay. Number 12, proposed buildings contribute to visual harmony with existing buildings,
As related to scale and design.
as related to scale and design. So
Yeah, I say no,
scale
too many
and-
units on small lot.
Well, the minimum square footage is 1,200 square feet. My house is 1,200 square feet. If it's a two-story, it's 2,400 square feet, correct? And in a mod, I believe there are no minimum square footage requirements. I believe. I'm not sure.
No, Thought there was.
Is it in visual harmony with existing buildings in the neighborhood?
Well,
Yeah.
that's the question,
I mean,
is
you have
visual
some-
harmony, we're not
Right.
arguing, yeah. I do
Well,
not think so.
But this, I mean, this requires what do you want to say it? This requires the exercise of your sense of what's lovely and what
Right.
isn't.
Right.
And, you know, I personally, sorry, I personally, think that it is not an unattractive structure, and I don't think it is. It does contribute to the visual harmony. And we have an expert who spoke to that issue and actually produced some numbers going to show it. So,
I think the architecture does contribute to the visual harmony, but having an RV parked in front of your house
Yes.
doesn't.
Right.
So,
But no one's gonna see that
Yeah,
from
but
the
they're
road.
not the harmony with each other, it's the harmony with the surrounding
with the
right.
buildings,
area, is the way I take it, it's not.
harmony
Yeah, they look
with
swell together.
existing buildings, right. With existing buildings. All right, if we can't come to consensus,
Well, it's
we'll
just,
just
well, I
leave
guess,
it.
how do you interpret that?
Yeah.
I read it to mean visual harmony with existing building in the neighborhood, meaning, all of us that live maybe 2-3 miles or whatever around it. But you're saying it's, if the development is complete, they look swell to each other? That's the way,
Well, I certainly didn't have a problem with any of those architectural drawings.
Let's just skip that.
All right,
oh yeah,
I'm for
it's,
skipping it.
I
How's-
just,
How's
fine,
everybody else doing?
ignore it.
okay.
Whether the proposed project creates excessive exterior lighting glare or spillover, they have addressed that in the plan.
Yeah, I
That's-
don't have a problem
That's
with that.
standard with throughout the county, down
Yeah.
lighting and non-invasive.
I have no problem.
Whether the proposed project leads to a major change in the natural character of the area. Through removal of vegetation, there is none, or
And they're gonna
alteration.
leave all the verticals, so, I would say it doesn't.
If anything, it's an improvement if they add some topsoil.
Yeah, but you don't know what the destabilization of the floor will be. I mean, I'm hoping they got some ground penetrating radar with that geologist guy coming. I'd like to know what's down there.
Okay.
No,
Look- Well,
what I'm,
there-
We're talking about natural
Look at,
vegetation.
yes,
or
through,
altering of the topography.
right, through the removal of natural vegetation, there will be none, or very minimal. Alteration of the topography, the alteration is an improvement if they're adding topsoil, but
I would just skip it.
Yeah.
skip it. Whether and in what amount and form financial assurance is necessary to meet the objectives of this ordinance. I don't know what the county ordinance demands for financial.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that either.
I have a note somewhere, but I have no idea where I put it. Leave it alone?
No, I think this one, we've had some discussions and clarifications by the applicants relative to, you know, infrastructure that's in place and, you know, funding and reserves necessary to make sure it's a going concern.
That could be a condition.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, put it as a condition.
Yeah.
Whether and to what extent site-specific conditions should be imposed to mitigate potentially problematic impacts on the use. I think we can address that under conditions too, if you come up with something.
Yep.
And the impact on the proposed project on public health, safety, and general welfare of the county. I have no comment on that.
I think the biggest one there is, there's been a lot of talk about evaluation relative to tax, so I think that's one. And I think the other one is, you know, providing information on the economic impact that shows the direct, indirect, and the induced economic benefits, you know, they talked about a few things, right? Contractors, suppliers, food and beverage, all those things that are kind of the indirect benefits of having the residents there. Having that economic impact is helpful to understand the tax benefits.
I wouldn't
Is that
touch
a
it.
reason?
I wouldn't touch it. I would skip it, because
Yeah.
quite frankly, I think, as someone said, for every dollar of benefit that accrues to one party, it's more than likely the negative externalities, which is, as I understand it, is urban planning speak for the kinds of costs that are going to be socialized among the taxpayers will more than offset, will be more than whatever as an example, the tax benefit is. I mean, you know,
I would be for just adding that as a condition or a concern, financial assurance.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. Is the proposal consistent with the town comprehensive plan?
Huh? Are you going backwards or what?
Oh.
Oh, on there. I'm looking.
Are you, everybody looking at their worksheet?
No.
Yes,
Sorry.
okay, sorry, skipped ahead of me.
So I'm thinking, I'll throw this out there. Although parcel is zoned park/recreational,
It isn't zoned
Oh, I gave
park
my copy.
recreational.
Oh,
It's
recreation-
zoned recreational commercial.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Although indicated on the town's comprehensive plan as park/recreational.
The commercial part is the county's, not ours.
Our intent was not to have it commercial.
Correct.
Yes. I think it isn't consistent. I mean, that's
So
the
could
one
we
thing.
say our comprehensive plan
It is not
is not
consistent.
commercial?
Yeah, yeah, but the commercial,
Well,
oh, wait a minute, that was
Why
the
don't you-
land use and zoning, wasn't it?
just answer
From the
yes or no
county.
the question. Is the proposal consistent with the town comprehensive plan? The answer is no.
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 We don't have to go
Right,
on.
yeah, we don't have to elaborate. All right, concerns or objections that we may wish to see addressed if the RPC supports. I have a whole list here.
What do you have? Linda?
Yeah,
That we would require additional geological study,
Yes.
yeah,
that this is just a given approval of all permits at all levels, state, county, local.
Yes.
Crushing, and these are just notes I took as people were speaking, crushing and blasting, assurance and monitoring, assurance, as to no outside damage and monitoring of
Yes.
that. Likewise, groundwater monitoring and taking responsibility for any negative effects. Additional traffic study.
wait a minute, taking any negative
Right,
effects
if we have
regarding the water?
groundwater monitoring and responsibility for.
I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, very good.
Okay. An additional traffic study or studies.
Yes.
A financial assurance on the project. As I was going through this, they did address safety railings and safety walls along the edge, so that's already in there. I don't know if we need to restate that, reiterate that or not. No? Okay. And then their operational rules and their bylaws. I forgot which, section 16, the impact.
Yeah,
There are some in there that I really want to see included. They are more restrictive with their short-term rentals than we are right
Correct.
now.
Yeah, because
It's
they
under
don't
16.
permit Airbnb
Right.
or any number of other things.
yeah.
So it's subject to approval of the association or the board or whatever.
Yeah, because they
So,
handle all the rentals.
right,
from
I like the
somebody
idea
else.
of no more than 6 occupants and whatever, and accountability. Some
Would
of
you
the
then
other,
would you then have bylaws that are approved by the town of Sevastopol? Do
Pardon?
that or reviewed?
well, I'm happy with their bylaws, I don't know.
I think that would belong to the party, I mean, not our
Yeah,
business,
okay.
I mean, except.
All right.
I mean, it's usually. I
What
mean,
about that, we
you
talked
can't
about
break laws and
provisions
things
like
that.
no wood fires would be in a
That's right.
certain part of their
No-
bylaws
No
rather than a
swimming,
votable
yeah,
part.
no swimming, I don't remember if there was swimming. Did you
No
address?
swimming or fishing in the
No
ponds.
swimming,
That's
wood
in there.
fires,
There's
or
no
fishing,
no,
Oh,
yeah,
it's in there.
only in the pool.
or diving boards or whatever.
I can see the water slide.
So, anything else? Anybody else have?
So what'd you write about the bylaws business? Or what'd you say?
Well, something about, I guess if it's part of the application, it would have to remain in.
Yes,
So I guess
there
we
is
don't
that,
really need
yeah,
to address
yeah.
it. If it's part of
Because,
the
I mean,
application.
you know, homeowners
it-
can
It
change
needs to
their
remain
stuff
in,
and whatnot.
right.
None of our business
Comprehensive,
on that aspect.
more than several places.
So
I've
this
read.
is your final opportunity here.
To say something?
Yep, to say something, at least that's gonna go on to the town board. Maybe the town board will have additional comments, but.
I think I'm good.
Good.
Should I point out that Quarry is owned by the state of Wisconsin?
I think they might be leasing it to the county. George Penny Park
Yeah,
is actually
I thought it
owned
was
by the
interesting
state.
down at, yeah, the Penny Park. The signs say, and I wondered about this because of reading about the county door purchase, that the property is owned by the state of Wisconsin. And it's maintained by the county of Door through its park system. So I thought, well, isn't that interesting? I don't know, it was one of those things I always thought the county owned it, but.
I think it's under lease.
Take a look at the brown
Yeah.
signs when you get on there.
Okay.